When people do anything that and this is the important part, that they don't want to do, the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, it's especially large or grows larger in people that
Wim has figured out ways, namely through breath work and through exposure to cold, to take conscious control over aspects of his physiology that, for most people, they simply can't tune into and control.
Today, I want to discuss how insights from Andrew Huberman and the Wim Hof Method practice could help me develop unlimited willpower using the LAMA framework. I've been practicing the Wim Hof Method for almost 10 years and have been an avid listener of Andrew Huberman's podcast since the day it launched. Both helped me tremendously to live a more healthy and intentional life. Willpower doesn't exist in a vacuum. We need it in the context of things we have to, need to, or want to do in life. Every time I catch myself lacking tenacity and willpower, I view myself as lazy. Laziness, for a lack of better term, is the first letter of the LAMA framework. You can also view laziness as psychological friction we encounter when doing hard things or retaining from doing tempting things. It's this internal push and pull battle between comfort and ambition. And willpower is the currency we need to pay to follow a disciplined life in this battle of internal friction. I used to believe that willpower was A, limited, and B, strongly tied to motivation and a person rather than a skill that one can specifically train. In the Huberman Labs episode on willpower and tenacity, I learned two valuable lessons that could convince me to adopt more of a growth mindset regarding willpower. Let's first talk about willpower as this currency for self-control. A 2013 study from my home university, the University of Zurich, looked at how different beliefs on willpower can impact our physiology and performance. A common assumption is that willpower requires energy. Therefore, we must constantly replenish it, for example, through glucose intake in the form of sugary drinks. Other people view willpower more as a quality of the self that we have access to regardless of how tired or energetic we feel. So willpower would be more of a limitless resource for the second group of people. The study demonstrated that glucose only enhances willpower for individuals who view willpower as a finite resource that diminishes with use. Those who believed willpower was plentiful or unlimited showed no significant benefits from glucose intake, maintaining high levels of self-control regardless of whether they consumed sugar or not. This research suggests that the power of belief over our physiological state can significantly affect our willpower. So rather than relying solely on physical energy boosts like glucose, fostering a belief in the abundance of willpower could be a more effective strategy for enhancing self-control. This really taught me to view willpower as a skill rather than a limited resource that quickly diminishes with use and depends on sugar, coffee, sleep, motivation, and other things. This is empowering, and it also strips away the excuses. So, this concludes that I really am lazy and not just hungry. Which is important and the perfect segue to the second study discussed in the Huberman's episode on willpower. If willpower is this limitless power, where does it reside and how can we train it? It turns out that there is a brain region attributed to tenacity and willpower, called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, and it is suggested that it is responsible for controlling different aspects associated with tenacity and willpower, and that we can make this brain region bigger by training. The study Aerobic Exercise Training Increases Brain Volume in Aging Humans by Stanley J. Kulkamp and colleagues investigates how aerobic fitness training affects brain volume in older adults, given that brain structural decline begins in the third decade of life and is linked to cognitive deterioration. The study involved 59 healthy but sedentary older adults, aged 60 to 79, who were divided into an aerobic exercise group and a non-aerobic stretching and toning control group. The older adults participated in either a 6-month aerobic exercise program, which involved cardiovascular workouts based on their VO2 max levels, or a non-aerobic program focusing on toning and stretching. They observed a significant increase in both gray and white matter volume in the aerobic group, but not in the non-aerobic group. Increases were notable in the frontal and temporal lobes, areas known for the roles in higher order cognitive functions like memory and attention. The frontal lobes also include the anterior cingulate cortex, which controls willpower and tenacity. One possible conclusion that Huberman makes is that the friction that the participants had to overcome to do their hard cardiovascular workouts also increased their willpower. If you compare it with the other group from the study, which just did the stretching and toning, you don't need to overcome the same amount of mental friction there. And when you think about it, it actually makes a lot of sense. When we do a lot of hard things where we need to overcome this mental friction of resistance or laziness, we train ourselves to be more tenacious, have more grits, and simply be stronger willed. So doing things mindlessly or following just a habit probably won't train my willpower. So it might be really good to feel this resistance of laziness, discomfort, or mental friction. Huberman also discussed this with former Navy SEAL and ultramarathon runner David Goggins, who is the epitome of willpower by constantly challenging himself to do harder things.
I tell David Goggins about this, and I waited until now to tell you because I felt like well, for obvious reasons, I wanted to tell you, and I wanted to tell you here.
Well, I love that because that's how I've lived my entire life. I don't know anything about that, but people go, man, you have such a strong will. It's something that you build.
So how does this all tie together with the Wim Hof Method, and how can you use it as a framework so that you don't necessarily need to rely solely on cardiovascular training? The Wim Hof Method contains deliberate breathing and cold exposure, and these two things are connected. Taking a cold shower or an ice bath will most likely give you a similar mental friction as going out for a run, if not more. Through the Wim Hof Method breathwork, I can overcome these frictions through activation, the second letter of my LAMA framework. To overcome our laziness, we need to have this activating initial moment. Newton's first law of motion states that a body at rest remains at rest, or if in motion, remains in motion. I'm using this law symbolically here. If I want to get in motion, I need the energy to get in motion. And the bigger the friction is between the state I'm in and the state I want to get in, the bigger my activation energy needs to be. And one of the easiest ways to change my state fast is by deliberate breathing. It's fast and I can do it anywhere and anytime. People sometimes wrongly and dangerously assume that the Wim Hof Method breathing is done while going into an ice bath, but it actually is for activation in the sense of preparing me mentally to go into an ice bath. By increasing my breathing pace to fast and deep inhalations and shorter exhalations, I activate my sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response, which will increase my energy and alertness. This will gear my body and mind towards action. The other part of the Wim Hof Method breathing after the 30 to 40 vigorous inhalations is a long breath hold after exhalation for typically 90 to 120 seconds. This breath hold will calm me down again. The contrast between these two states for 2 to 4 rounds will create this energized yet calm and earthed state of mind, which is perfect for overcoming the first barrier of mental friction. By the way, I have a free 7-day breathwork email and video course where I go deeper into the topic of deliberate breathing techniques and mindfulness. Feel free to check it out, the link is in the description. Cold showers and ice baths can serve both as a willpower enhancing exercise to increase overall tenacity or as an activation practice. And the way I see this is that when cold exposure becomes kind of a habit, the effect on strengthening our willpower will wear off, much like with any other activity that descends into automation. This will not mean that the habit becomes useless, because the physiological effect on our nervous system will still remain the same no matter how experienced we are with taking ice baths. This is the reason daily cold showers can transcend into an activation practice for other practices where we need willpower. Alternatively, we can make the cold exposure practice more difficult by doing it longer with colder water or right after waking up, for example. Although willpower is generally viewed as a positive character trait, it can often also negatively affect you and others. For example, people with strong willpower may persist in careers, relationships, or hobbies that are unrewarding or even detrimental to their well-being. This could be due to the so-called sunk cost fallacy, where people continue to invest time, energy, or money in something simply because they've already invested a lot, not because it's the best decision moving forward. Another example is that people with high levels of self-discipline might ignore or suppress signs of physical or emotional stress in order to meet a goal. This can lead to burnout, physical health issues, or chronic stress. For example, an athlete might push through pain to continue training or competing, which could lead to injuries or long-term health problems. So, strong willpower can sometimes turn into rigidity. When people are too focused on their goals or routines, they might become inflexible and resistant to change. This could hinder their ability to adapt to new information or circumstances, potentially leading to less optimal decisions or outcomes. So this is why mindfulness plays a big role in cultivating willpower and tenacity, the third letter of my llama framework. With the power of the Wim Hof Method breathwork, we can enhance our self-awareness. Mindfulness encourages an ongoing, non-judgmental awareness of my thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations. This heightened awareness can help me recognize when my drive to exert willpower leads into harmful territory. Whether it's pushing too hard, neglecting my needs, or persevering in unhelpful situations. Additionally, with cold exposure practice, such as taking daily cold showers or ice baths, I develop mental stress tolerance and reduce stress. Chronic stress can deplete willpower. By practicing cold exposure, I enhance my mindfulness towards different stressors and can accept them more easily for what they are. Therefore, I can maintain a reserve of willpower for when it's truly needed, rather than exhausting it on stress responses. All this can lead to better decision-making by allowing for a clearer mind, free of cluttered thoughts and distractions. This clarity can help me assess whether my use of willpower is effective and aligned with my overall values and long-term goals. To further underline the importance of mindfulness, Andrew Huberman has highlighted multiple times the benefits of practices like yoga nidra or non-sleep deep rest for mental recovery and enhancing awareness of emotional and physical sensations. I often combine a non-sleep deep rest practice with the Wim Hof Method breathing during the breath hold phases or at the end of the session. There are also several studies on the importance of the ability to sense internal signals, aka interoception, and how it contributes to better mental health. Lastly, let's go to the last part of our llama framework. To cultivate willpower, we need continuous action. Life is full of obstacles and challenges that will grow our willpower. So I can only really train my willpower on a journey towards a destination where we face challenges. Often these challenges are disguised as limitations. When we learn a new skill, for example, we all go through a difficult phase described in the Dunning-Kruger effect. We often overestimate our competence when we start with a new thing, which translates into enthusiasm. With increasing competence or knowledge, we realize that the thing we just started is much more difficult than we imagined. Our confidence initially falls with more understanding, and we fall into the valley of despair. This is the phase where most people will give up and start another thing. But we all go through these phases where the enthusiasm disappears and our confidence shatters. But it's in those phases, the valleys of despairs, where willpower is needed and is also trained. So if we are able to fight through the valley of despair and increase our skills more and more, we gain back our confidence. But this time, the confidence is coupled with competence. But this is not the happy end. Many people will remain on this plateau where they gain confidence and competence in one specialized field and then become complacent. It's like someone who boasts that they have 10 years of experience in something, when in fact it took only 1 year to develop the skill set, and they have been complacent on this plateau for the other 9 years. So this means we constantly need to challenge ourselves. When talking about willpower, the context where it is forged is fluid and ever-changing. We all have limited time, and while breathwork and cold exposure are great practices for willpower and tenacity initially, there will come a time when it adapts and when we take the learned principles and apply them to something else. For example, I nowadays use breathwork and ice baths for activation and mindfulness purposes, or for changing my state. It serves a purpose in a bigger context, whether it's for my physical activities, family, or career goals. It's not the center of my universe where my whole day is ruined when I don't get to do my breathwork morning routine. So let me know in the comments what you think about the Wim Hof Method and willpower. And you might also be interested in how Andrew Huberman changed and transformed my Wim Hof Method practice.